What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 9, Thursday Night Football.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
Okay, in this video, I'm going to give you my top picks for the Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Houston Texans. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, NFL Week 9. Let's take a look at this Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Houston Texans. So at the quarterback position, you have Jalen Hurts and Davis Mills. Now Davis Mills, a lot of his weapons are injured or out. So I like Jalen Hurts from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Houston Texans, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. Now, they've been pretty good versus opposing quarterbacks, but Jalen Hurts has averaged 26 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.3 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 84% owned, projected at 24.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's 11,800 DraftKings salary. Vegas thinks there's going to be 45 points scored in this game, with the Eagles favored by 14. Now, Jalen Hurts has scored 28, 17, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, and he got 2, 9, and 15 rush attempts in those games. So, monster rushing upside. He's been fantastic all season long. He's got not a great matchup here, but he's clearly the best quarterback on the slate. So, I like Jalen Hurts here versus the Houston Texans. Now, if you want to roll the dice with Davis Mills for 9,000 DraftKings salary, he's only going to be about 32% owned. He scored 10, 22, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Now, Davis Mills, Vegas thinks they're going to be behind by 14 points, so he should get a lot of pass attempts in this game. So, I don't think he's an awful option as a contrarian play here in a tournament lineup. So, I'd go ahead and roll the dice with Davis Mills in one of my lineups at only 9,000 DraftKings salary. Hope he can score 20 plus fantasy points. So I like Jalen Hurts, but Davis Mills is in play because he's so cheap. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. So the stud on the slate and my favorite fantasy pick for this game, probably going to be my captain as well. I like Miles Sanders from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Houston Texans, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Miles Sanders has averaged 14.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 16.3 rush attempts per game and 1.9 pass targets per game. So he's been on the field for 61% of the snaps, going to be about 35% owned. I would think that ownership would be a little bit higher here. I would expect closer to 50%. So I think he's going to go under owned a little bit here. And he's projected at 13.1 fantasy points here tonight. I'm going to up that to 17 fantasy points. I think he scores a touchdown, has at least 90 or 100 yards here. And Miles Sanders is 10,400 DraftKings salary. And Miles Sanders has scored 14, 14, and 8 fantasy points in the last 3 games. But he's got a fantastic matchup. And with Vegas thinking that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be ahead by 14, he could get some extra rush attempts in what could be a great rushing game script or running game script. So I like Miles Sanders here versus the Houston Texans.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Now for the Houston Texans, you have Damon Pierce, and he's playing the Philadelphia Eagles, which have a good defense overall, middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Damon Pierce has averaged 15.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 17.3 rush attempts per game and 3.4 pass targets per game. Now, he's going to be about 55% owned, projected at 15.2 fantasy points here tonight. Now, he's only $8,600 DraftKings salary. So I think some people are going to play Damon Pierce over Miles Sanders just to save that salary. And Damon Pierce on average is getting more touches per game than is Miles Sanders. But the worry here is that the Houston Texans are going to fall behind and have to abandon the run. But the good news is Damon Pierce got 5, 4, and 5 pass targets in the last 3 games. So he scored 14, 16, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 15, 20, and 26 rush attempts on top of those 5, 4, and 5 pass targets. So monster volume here. He's got 20 to 31 touches in the past 3 weeks. So I think that's why his ownership is over Miles Sanders. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to bite on this play. I think I'm going to go with a Miles Sanders captain, but I think you could still play Damon Pierce in the same lineup. So I like Damon Pierce here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So stud on the slate, you have A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's averaging 20.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9.1 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 83% of the snaps, going to be about 52% owned. He's projected at 17.7 fantasy points here tonight. He's $11,200 DraftKings salary. A.J. Brown has scored 43, 18, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 11, 8, and 7 pass targets. So if you can fit him into your lineup, I like A.J. Brown here versus the Houston Texans. Now for the Philadelphia Eagles, the next guy up is Devonta Smith, and he's averaging 13.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.3 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 93% of the snaps, gonna be about 42% owned, projected at 12.9 fantasy points here tonight. He's $8,200 DraftKings salary, and Devonta Smith has scored 7, 15, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, 5, and 11 pass targets. So I like Devonta Smith here versus the Houston Texans.
Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. Our NBA tools are awesome. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, now for the Houston Texans, you have Brandon Cooks, who's questionable, and he didn't practice on Wednesday, so that is concerning. But if he does play, I think you gotta play this guy from the Houston Texans, Brandon Cooks. He's averaging 10.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.6 pass targets per game. Been on the field for 85% of the snaps. Gonna be about 42% owned, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's 7,200 DraftKings salary. And with Vegas thinking that the Texans are gonna be behind by 14 points, this could be an opportunity to play some Houston Texans wide receivers, as it should be a passing game script. So Brandon Cooks has scored 11, 9, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 5, and 6 pass targets. So if he does play tonight, I like Brandon Cooks here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, if Brandon Cooks does not play, even if he does play, and you want to look to one of the other wide receivers from the Houston Texans, you got a couple of options here. You can go with Chris Moore or Philip Dorsett. So let's go over Chris Moore from the Houston Texans. He's averaging 5.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.2 pass targets per game. Been on the field for 65% of the snaps. Gonna be about 17% owned, projected at 4.8 fantasy points here tonight. But if Brandon Cooks is out, that's gonna bump his value up. He should get some extra pass targets. Now, Chris Moore, he's 5,400 DraftKings salary. He didn't score any fantasy points last week, but he did have 10 fantasy points the week before that off of 4 pass targets. So I like Chris Moore here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the other wide receiver for the Eagles is Philip Dorsett. He is only averaging 2.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 2 pass targets per game. But just take a look at his last 2 games. He scored 2 and 13 fantasy points off of 5 and 3 pass targets. So he's gotten double the targets as Chris Moore in the last 2 weeks. And he's only 4,000 DraftKings salary. So if Brandon Cooks is out, Philip Dorsett could be an interesting pick here. So I like Philip Dorsett as a salary saving option here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, let's take a look at the tight end position. So stud on the slate, you got Dallas Goedert from the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Houston Texans are middle of the pack defending opposing tight ends. Dallas Goedert has averaged 11.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.9 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 88% of the snaps, going to be about 42% owned, projected at 12.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,600 DraftKings salary. Dallas Goedert has scored 12, 4, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 5, and 9 pass targets. So I like Dallas Goedert here versus the Houston Texans. Now for the Houston Texans, if you're looking for a sleeper pick or a super salary saver, take a look at Brevin Jordan. And he's only averaging 1.9 fantasy points per game on the season. Looks like he's played 2 games so far. He got 4 pass targets in each of those games, scored 4 fantasy points last week, and he's going to be about 19% owned. He's only 1,000 DraftKings salary, so he got 8 pass targets in the last 2 weeks. I think that makes him a pretty good play here for only 1,000 DraftKings salary. He does not need much to hit value, and that's going to open up that salary in your lineup to fit in all these Philadelphia Eagles studs. So I like Brevin Jordan here versus the Philadelphia Eagles.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.